Assalamualaikum and very good day to all present today. Welcome to the first round of the English debate competition, InterVarsity Science E-Debate Challenge 2021. The motion for this debate is, in light of the short film Safe Rough, this house regrets the use of animals in scientific research. I will be the chairperson and the timekeeper for room 8. Let me now introduce the debaters to you. Acting as the government team for this debate is the team from IMU with Ms. Ashika as the Prime Minister, Ms. Sandra as the Deputy Prime Minister, and Mr. Mikhail as the Government Whip. Acting as the opposition team for this debate is the team from Mutation A, with Mr. Kenny Alfred as the opposition leader, Ms. Sajdini Ganaslen as the second opposition speaker, and Ms. Susela Suhmantra as the opposition whip. Our panel of adjudicators consists of Mr. Tuan Ashraf Jauhari Bintan Ali, and Ms. Aisyah Nadira, and Ms. Su Junye. Before we begin, I will briefly explain the rules. Sensitive issues related to religion, racism, and touching a person's personality are prohibited. The use of Quranic verses and hadiths to strengthen arguments is strictly prohibited. Each debater may speak for 7 minutes. The reply speech is 4 minutes. Time will begin to count as the debater begins to speak. The bell will be rung once at the end of the first minute to indicate that POIs are allowed to be asked by the opposing bench. Meanwhile, at the end of the 6th minute, the bell will be rung once to indicate that the time allocated for POIs has ended. The bell will be rung twice at the end of the 7th minute to indicate that the debater's time has expired. For the reply speech session, both teams will be given 1 minute as preparation time before making their respective reply speeches. At the 10 minute of reply speech time, the bell will be rung once. In the 4th minute, the bell will be rung twice to indicate that the time for the reply speech has ended. While the debater is speaking, the opposition team can apply POIs in the form of question, statement, facts, explanations, or corrections. The opposition team are allowed to turn the microphone on or raise hand and papers to alert the speaker for POIs. No POIs are allowed during the reply speech session. If the debater loses internet connection during the debate, the debaters are given 10 minutes to return to the debate session. When the debater successfully returns to the debate session, the debater can continue the debate where they stopped and there are no deduction marks. If the debater is unable to enter the room after 10 minutes, the next debater from the opposition team will continue the debate session. Debaters are reminded to ensure internet access is available and in good condition for the smooth running of the debate session. Victory will be awarded to the team that gets a majority vote from the panel of adjudicators. The decision of the panel of adjudicators is final. Now, we come to our debate today. To open the case from the government team, I call upon the Prime Minister to start the debate session.
Hello, I am here. All right. You can give me a countdown and I start. So hello, everybody. My name is Ashika Chankor, and I'm the first speaker for Side Government for the motion that in light of this short film, this House regrets the use of animals in scientific research. The short film being Save Ralph, a stop-motion mockumentary that's animated showing the perspective of a rabbit who details his life being under the conditions of animal testing and the damages it has caused to his body. So first and foremost, I'm going to start with a few definitions. So we feel like the most relevant type of scientific of research to be discussed in this debate is the type of research that places some kind of harm onto the animal. So for example, tagging animals or fishes to regulate their population doesn't inherently cause harm towards them. And so that type of research wouldn't really be relevant in this motion, but holding them captive and conducting toxicity tests, for example, does cause innate harm towards them and would be a relevant part of this conversation. So in light of the documentary and explaining why this documentary is relevant to this conversation is an extremely important part of our speech. And the reason why this documentary is relevant is because the scientific community is now having an increased awareness and understanding of animal sentience. Because for context, status quo and ethics in general, especially ethics within the sciences, largely pertains to minimizing harm towards relatively high sentient beings or beings of sentience that we feel, for example, humans are regarded to be sentient enough that harm that's placed towards them is considered unethical. Like, this is a base generalization on how the gist of ethics works in the context of scientific research, right? So in the pursuit of ethical scientific knowledge, it's to minimize the harm that's caused towards sentient beings. So what's the definition of sentience in this regard? So sentience in this regard, we feel, is the capacity of the organism to experience different feelings such as suffering or pleasure, like negative feelings of emotions, like including pain, maybe fear, boredom, and frustration, whilst positive emotions include like contentment and joy. Of course, like sentience is it's kind of like a subjective topic, and there's no one way to measure whether something is sentient or necessarily not. It's still contested. But the point that we make here inside government is that our understanding of animal sentience was extremely human-centric and biased, and that prevented us from actually correctly estimating the sentience of animals, and in fact underestimating their sentience to the point we justified decades of animal suffering. And the issue with this is not only has the suffering extended to uses that could potentially cause some human benefit, a lot of the industry standard is to test for like cosmetic items, for example, items that don't necessarily like create benefit, but are for our own like amusement, for example. So they're not all like related to, in fact, more often than not, concern things that aren't necessarily life-threatening. But like, let's engage them at their strongest. That like the fact that we have like developed this research by through animal suffering onto a being that is more sentient than we realized, and we've only now started to realize this through further research. For example, like dolphins, like now being able to, now that we understand that dolphins are able to dream, or like having a deeper understanding of animals, like having more complex like nervous systems and having like a better understanding of this has led to us understanding that just because animals don't have the innate ability to express their sentience, that doesn't mean that they're not deserving of the same respect that we have towards humans in regards to scientific testing. So that is the crux reason of our regret, because our misunderstanding of sentience towards animals has acted as an incorrect justification towards like their abuse and their suffering. So what does this suffering and what does this harm look like? So what is actually happening here? The suffering that is looked like can be like used, for example, in toxicology. So animals being used like for toxicology tests that determine like how toxic, how much of a substance will elicit a toxic reaction. So that obviously very clearly puts the animal under harm. And sometimes the animals undergo physical injuries. Like there was an example of like rabbits having their feet crushed, and also like psychological trauma of being held captive. And like animal welfare is a completely separate issue, but definitely relevant in this case, because the way in which animals were kept and their welfare was for the longest of time not a priority for most scientists, because again, the status quo is to equate sentient beings to being those that are treated with respect. And because they aren't treated with respect, because we believe them to be of lower sentience, we have not granted them the welfare that they deserve. And so this is the crux issue here. So another thing that makes this like further unjustified is that there are now, like, because we greater understanding of animals, and because the shift of our dogma is more empathizing towards animals because we have a greater understanding of their sentience, we have come to realize that there are better, more effective alternatives, because not only is animal testing causing harm towards them, it has its own set of sets of problems in being replicable and in being relevant to human studies. And this is particularly important because we need to recognize that the alternatives not only were there for us to discover, but we actively refuse to accept those things because we as a society have accepted these dogmas to be like, oh, we've accepted this data we've accepted animal data for the longest of times. Why can't we just continue accepting it now? And that contentment has continued to lead to animal suffering continuously. And because it's something where alternatives can exist, we believe that further emphasizes the injustice that is performed here. And so, sort of to round off, basically, our yardstick of success here, and what we want to prove is that first, animal suffering does exist, and this is shown by our increasing understanding of their sentience, and shown by this mockumentary as an example that just because they can't necessarily express this, they do feel some form of sentience. And so it is comparable to human suffering because, as I said, in our current dogma, we judge them in the same way as them. And then thirdly, their suffering is not justified, nor is it necessary as there are existing alternatives. And that I rest my case. Thank you.
Thank you for that speech. To open the case from the opposition team, I call upon the leader of opposition to continue the debate session.
Can you hear me? Hello, test mic. Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
So the side government first speaker mentioned about the justification of human life, where when performing these scientific researches on, they are basically saying that we are simply going to do this without any ethical procedure that could prevent such harm from from happening. So let me explain what is happening in both sides into this debate. So side government are centralizing the idea where animal life is basically the same as ours, where basically they mention that they have feelings, they have emotions, and they do deserve lives just like human as ourselves. But for oppositions, for our side, we believe that the only way for us to justify this animal, the only way where we can coexist with animal is to further understand and to further learn what they are capable of or what they has on them. So before that, allow me to introduce to you about our stance in today's debate. Firstly, we would conduct animals in scientific research only to animals that has big populations. For example, rabbit and mice for the better good of human being in the long run. So I'll be rebutting their points regarding to animal abuse and animal abuse and so on, where there are certain where we would implement this certification, RBS certification, where we only allow certain organizations and research center that has legally acquired this type of certification to perform animal research, because we believe that there has to be a standard, there has to be a procedure in order to perform such complicated procedure. So in this case, we can ensure that no animal will be treated badly. We can ensure that animal will be conducted in an ethical manner. So two substances that I have in my debate today. The first one, I'll explain to you on why animal should be used, why animal should be used for scientific research in order for us to coexist. The second one, I'll explain to you on the effects that will happen if human were to neglect these advantages that we have, for example, uh, using animal as a test subject when before performing or before giving out drugs domestically. So the first one, uh, using animals for my first point, we are performing scientific research in animal in order to prevent diseases that can potentially harm human beings. So why are we doing this? So in the first place, animals that are subjected to research for subjects, we have there's a variety of reasons doing that. First, they are biologically similar to human beings. Basically, we have the same DNA, we have the nearest DNA similarity as compared to other organism out there. For example, taking plants in this context, there's no way that we can perform such tests. For example, we are testing of drugs. There's no way that we can use plants because they have no near similarity. They have no near uh, similarity when it comes to DNA. And and secondly, where I'll emphasize back my motion today, where we use animal that has big population. So when it comes to handling animals or performing scientific research, as mentioned in my stance earlier on, where we'll be using animals that has big population, like rabbits and mice. So by doing this, their we can easily study uh, their we can easily study this animal for generations, as we see that they have a huge number of population, and we don't think that it will cause them to go extinct in the in in it will cause them to go extinct. So of course, our side would not be using any animal that are near to extinction, animals that are regarded as uh, valuable or as rare. So that's why we only conduct this with those
Pure.
animals. Yes.
I'm sorry, I don't see how much the population of the animal at all justifies the suffering done onto that animal. Like, if there are a lot of cats, does that mean that it's okay for us to test on cats? Like, it doesn't make sense. Why does that correlate at all? Please explain.
Uh, the thing is that by our belief in using animals that has big population will increase the chances of us performing better researches due to continuous supply of animals. Like when it comes to drug testing, okay, for example, we have this COVID-19 pandemic going on, where we are not going to give out vaccines everywhere without performing certain tests on subjects like animals. So in order for us to to see the effects of these vaccines, we're going to test it out. We're going to see the effects from this animal. Yes, side opposition might come up and say that human being has the different tolerance as compared to animals. But in our case, we see that animals are the closest being to come to human, and that is the only way that we can figure out what is happening with the drugs that are being produced today. So moving on to so I'll be recapping on what I've mentioned just now. So for the argument that has been brought forward, I have mentioned about RDS certification, where we would protect this animal from being tortured, from being abused when they are being conducted for scientific research, and thus is the reason why we think our side perform a better environment for this animal to be scientifically researched. And that's all from me. Thank you.
I would like to thank the speaker for their speech. To continue our debate today, I call upon the Deputy Prime Minister to continue the case for their side.
Yeah, hello, can everyone hear me? Alright, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Alright, so good evening everyone. My name is Sandra and I am the Deputy Prime Minister, and I would like to begin my speech by rebutting a couple of the points that were previously brought up. So it was said that that side government is stating that animals and humans are essentially the same, and it was further elaborated on that a lot of accusations were thrown at our side that simply have no standing. Firstly, to for the record, we said we should acknowledge that animals are sentient, which is a quality that they share with humans, and they are capable of feeling pain. They are capable of suffering. They are capable of even falling into depression, and they are capable of experiencing a lot of things that we experience as humans. And it is only recently that we realized the extent to which this is a crime against nature. Essentially, we are not simply talking about inflicting we're not simply talking about inflicting minor pain. We are talking about putting animals in critical conditions in the name of science. We are talking about the mass production of animals simply for their use and later disposal in scientific research, which is as of now the status quo, which opposition has completely failed to recognize. We are t- and Side government has also stated that it is that we will set forward ethical guidelines, and that we will ensure that animals are not abused in scientific testing. But where are these ethical guidelines, and how is side government going to achieve this? It is currently side government is side opposition is essentially arguing for status quo, which promotes the usage of animals in scientific research, and this includes research in which these animals are essentially left in critical conditions, suffering from serious psychological and physical pain, and essentially euthanized as soon as their use in the scientific community has expired. This is status quo, and this is what side opposition is defending. Why is side opposition telling us that they will set forward ethical standards and they will ensure that animals are not being abused, when this essentially goes against the paradigm which has been set forward towards them in the motion? We believe that this is absolutely not ethical to allow animals to be mass produced for their use in research, because essentially the purpose of these animal lives are to ensure that they serve a human purpose, and as soon as they no longer serve a purpose, they're more often than not euthanized or disposed of, because we are not viewing these animals as sentient beings. We are not viewing lives as lives. We are essentially commercializing the entire process
POI?
of scientific research, and we are just this and we do not we are essentially not seeing life as life. We are seeing them as something that is disposable.
POI,
We are
miss?
seeing later. We are seeing these animals as something that is disposable. We're simply devaluing as life itself by allowing for animal research to continue, and we do not see the ethical standards which was proposed by side opposition coming in here at any step of the process. Now, what we would like to talk about is why we do not believe that this should be continuing, and why there is no need to use animals in this form of research. Firstly, it is very much possible for people to obtain samples of animal cells. For example, in the testing of cosmetic products, endothelial cells are cultured endothelial cells can be used viably as a replacement for actual human cells and actual animal cells. Why are we still engaged? Why are we still practicing animal testing when there are other viable options that are available to us? Why is there a need for us to bring inflict pain and suffering onto other creatures that are sentient, capable of feeling pain like humans? We are not saying they are human, but why is it not the first rule in
POI,
any
miss?
study, in order to ensure that we minimize the harm caused and minimize the suffering? Yes, I will take your POI.
Okay, yeah, thank you. The studies have shown that even by using these animal cells, like the cells that you have mentioned before, the success rates are not exactly as the same as used by, when we use animals. Please justify.
So it was stated that the success rate by using these cells is not the same as using animals, but then the same argument can be made for the success rate in animal drug trials and in human drug trials. The results will never be the same. And we feel that it is completely unnecessary for us to add an extra stage, which is the animal trial, which involves a lot of pain, suffering, maybe even death inflicted upon these animals who essentially did not ask for this life. There is no way we can tell. There's no way for us to tell whether an animal consents to research because we simply cannot understand this. In the case of human research, we are able to obtain informed consent, we are able to make compensations. In the case of animal research, animals are merely used and then discarded, and this complete disregard for human life is something that we cannot stand for in the scientific community. We believe that this disregard for the value of life does not reflect well upon the scientific community, and there has been a growing incentive even in status quo for this form of animal testing to stop. And secondly, we apologies and secondly we believe that this essential system of devaluing life is going to create a vicious cycle in which animal testing is repeatedly used because they are so easily obtainable, and we are not even going to look into or consider other alternatives that minimize harm. And this is a major harm. This essentially violates the very ethics upon which the scientific community is founded upon. Is it not the first rule to consider whether or not the first thing to consider in any research is whether or not it brings physical harm, psychological harm, the risks involved, and clearly we can see that the usage of animal testing within the paradigms of this debate as defined by our first speaker is absolutely unethical, does not serve any real purpose, and should be stopped as soon as possible. Now, it was previously brought up that we are only going to be using animals that have a large population, and that we are going to we are going to study them for generation. This is merely facilitating that. This is merely propagating the idea that lives are not valuable, lives are disposable, and these are not the values we want to build within our scientific community. And these are not the values we want future generations to carry on with them. Thank you. I have never been prouder to represent.
I would like to thank the speaker for their remarks. Now I call upon the Deputy Leader of Opposition to continue the case for their side.
All right, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, a very good day to everyone. Yes, before beginning our speech from side opposition as the Deputy Leader of Opposition, firstly, I would like to throw some rebuttals towards the government side in today's motion. So firstly, the government side has said that there are alternatives in preventing this animal use in scientific research, but they have not provided one evidence or one single alternative that may be beneficial and that has the exact same success rate as animal testing has provided and proved in today's status quo. And as an alternative to even as side government, we do have regard towards this life, and because we believe, as what my first speaker has said in his stance, we believe that animals and humans, we have almost the same biological similarity, and that is why animal testing is crucial in the advancement of our scientific research. And in ways to make sure, regarding the ethical issue, in ways to make sure that animal testing is being carried out in an ethical manner, in a proper manner, so that in a proper manner is by the proof that has been given by my first speaker, in which we ensure that there is RDS certification, which means that as what side government has opposed this, now we will ensure that there is euthanasia to those animals and they are being put to rest in a proper state ethically. And that is why we believe that is one of the many reasons why we do not regret the use of animals in scientific research. Moving on to
POI,
yes.
can I clarify that the only reason why that your side of the house claims that to be ethical is because you are basing it off of old guidelines that assume that animal sentience is not equivalent to human sentience. Is this true or false?
Yes, thank you for your POI. Yes, regarding the POI, we believe that the reason, yes, we understand the stance given by the Thai government that everyone has sentience, but as said by my first speaker in his stance, the reason why we are using, one of the biggest reasons why we are using animals in testing is because of its population itself. Why, in which way do we define this population? Is because, for example, once take mice into consideration. Mice, as we all know, are vector-carrying animals, rodents that carry diseases. So the reason why we are using these animals in this testing process is because, in one, we are actually helping them reduce the risk of disease spread as a whole. For example, given by my first speaker, COVID-19 was actually sourced from an animal itself. So animal testing towards that specific animal help to actually determine what kind of virus, what type of variant that is being that has been exposed to the people today. So leading onward to my first point from side, my main point from side opposition would be why is actually animal testing needed in scientific research? What it is needed because it is essential for the advancement of scientific research. Why we believe animals are actually needed in the advancement of scientific research is because, number one, they have biologically similar traits to humans, and they are also susceptible to many similar health problems as humans. For example, why the main reason why we test drugs and so on, toxicity levels on these animals, is because they give almost a higher chance of success rates and also almost similar results and feedbacks as humans may react to a certain drug. So what we think, what is animal research, I mean animal usage in scientific research actually used is for, it is used for forms of biomedical research. For example, why do we actually need to use these animals? Firstly, we would like to discover the cause, the diagnosis, the treatment, and the disease of suffering of humans and both animals, so that as we said in our stance before, we believe that the reason why we are using these animals and also why it might not cause a bigger impact to the population of the animal as a whole is because of the number of animals that we have. Like, for example, mice, we have a large number of those animals, and by using them we actually we can benefit both humans and animals in ways of if a certain disease is impacted to a human or animal, then that specific animal could actually help discover the diagnosis and also the cure for the specific illness. So the main benefits of why we believe that, why we do not regret the use of animals in scientific research is because as we already have seen in today's status quo, it has already been shown in various medicine cures that we can find and also acknowledge the severe consequences to public health and its medical research. Imagine if, like, you're not using animals in scientific research and you suddenly have a drug, or you suddenly have a medicine or a vaccine that you would like to test, and would you like directly want to test it on humans without any confirmation, knowing the population of humans, knowing the lifespan of humans, and so on? The reason why we are using animals in the first place is because it has a short life cycle, and so that they can be easily studied throughout the lifespan. Unlike, if you imagine using a human and like you injected a specimen or you injected a trial drug into them, the lifespan of a human, like, it will affect them throughout their whole life. So like we believe that when we regret the use of animals in scientific research, we are actually like abandoning medical research as a whole. So with that, we from side opposition, we strongly believe that we do not regret the use in animals in scientific research because it is the cheating that is needed for the advancement of scientific research itself. With that, I rest my case.
I would like to thank the speaker for their remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, and the honorable adjudicators, I shall now call upon the government whip to rebut.
Okay, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the second half of today's debate, where we hopefully try to clear up things that we learned from this debate and try to make the debate more clear, right? Okay, now first of all, I just want to say that the population really does not matter. I do not care if it's the billionth rabbit or if it's the last Siberian tiger that's dying, right? Suffering is suffering, and that is what we're trying to mitigate in government's case. We want to reduce the amount of animal suffering, unnecessary animal suffering that is occurring. And the point of that opposition is trying to make, that it's very populated, that they die soon anyway, does not at all reduce the amount of suffering that the individual animal receives, right? And it's even more preposterous to say that, hey, there's a lot, because the reason that there is a lot is because we're breeding them. We're breeding them in captivity so that they can spend their whole life being tortured by scientists for the sake of human beings, right? They didn't sign up for that, didn't consent for that, and it's unethical, right? That's it, right? And I know they're trying to talk about ethical guidelines, but here's the thing. The only ethical guideline for animal testing is not testing on animals, all right? So before I move on to the rest of my speech, let me try to clarify what government needs to make sure that we win this debate. Number one, we need to prove that, let me just... Okay, number one, we need to prove that suffering does indeed exist, right? And in no point in opposition speech do they really make the point that suffering does not exist, right? They're not really supposed to. Animal suffering does exist. This is something that they need to accept, right? And okay, so suffering does exist. Is that suffering justified? We believe no, because we believe that the suffering is not necessary, right? So most of opposition's speech was contingent on pretty much 2 points, right? Number one was that the animals are populated, so we should, I guess, care less for them because there's too much, I guess.
POI,
And sure, I guess it's about that. I'll take a POI.
Yeah, just now as you said that killing without their consent is something that like it is unethical or unethical, but does killing animals in other ways, like for example using pesticides and so on, like it's still killing, it's still suffering, but why is that legalized?
It's a bit different, right? And if you want to talk about the ethics of animal rights itself, right? Like, are you talking about veganism, vegetarianism, right? It's a huge other spectrum that we don't need to get into in this debate because we're focusing on just animals in scientific research, right? But it's also much more bad and worse in scientific research because these are not pests that are infiltrating our crops. These are not animals that we're making to eat, right? They have no purpose. We breed them and make more of these animals to test on them, for them to suffer, right? It's inherently more evil than other forms of animal suffering, right? And we could go on to other forms of animal suffering, but let's stay on the debate, right? Let's talk about scientific research itself, right? So the populated species, that point is totally out of the water. We believe that is not very relevant or relevant at all in this scenario, right? So let's move on to another point that opposition says, which is that it is a necessity, that it is necessary because inherently animals are like very similar to humans or something. First of all, animals are not like that similar to humans. There's a reason why human drug trials exist. Is because animal drug trials don't actually give enough information, right? And we are coming to a point of technology. Sure, you can say that the success rate of animal cell cultivation is not on par with animal testing yet, right? But you have to understand that there's way less suffering, and by way less, I mean infinitely less, because it's zero suffering in animal cell cultivation, right? And the thing is, if we do not regret, this is the reason why we need to regret the use of animals in scientific research, is when we are okay with the idea of using animals, we don't foster this technology, we don't actually develop this technology, and we will never get anywhere. If we regret the use of animals in scientific research, that sort of animal cell cultivation would get even better, right? Trying to test drugs that are made for humans should be used on human animal cells. It should be used with human enzymes. It doesn't make sense for us to make mice suffer for pills that's never going to benefit their species, right? So we believe that in the future the technology will be sufficient enough where animal cell cultivation is it's good enough so that it won't be necessary in the future. And even if the success rate of animal testing right now is much bigger than cell testing, right? We believe that it is still not justified, right? Because first of all, it's not 100%. It's not like killing an animal will 100% guarantee the safety and livelihood of every human in the world. No, it is. You can't make that comparison because it's simply not true. And it's not as if the alternative, which is using human drug trials on human cells is not effective at all, right? It is not that. As long as it's effective enough and it is possible for us to make a scientific advancements without using animals, without making animals suffer, then that is the path that we should be going. Because what is supposed to be ethical, right? Ethical is supposed to be reducing suffering, right? Just because you make death less painful doesn't mean that they don't lose their life. They still inherently die. They still inherently live and eat and defecate in the same small cage the rest of their life, and that is unethical. Animal testing and use of animals in science itself is unethical, and that is something that we should stray away from. We're not saying let's get rid of every type of medicine that was made on animals. No, we're not saying that. Whatever technology we have in the past, we keep, obviously, right? And we're not saying that let's just stop all animal testing altogether, right? Maybe that's a bit too drastic. Sure, we can understand that. But what we want to do ultimately is to regret the use of the animals in scientific research so that we can go on a path to reducing the suffering in the future, right? We want to make it so that it is morally incorruptible. Very bad to test using animals, right? And that's the point that we're trying to make, right? The only way the opposition can try to convince us that it is okay for the use of animals in scientific research is if they say that the suffering is not real. Animals don't suffer. We don't believe that. Sure, the suffering is justified somehow. We don't believe that because it's not necessary, right? And if animal suffering is somehow less than human suffering, that we care more about humans than animals, right? Well, let's say that when the alien comes, right, we have to be okay with them enslaving us, right? So with that, I rest my case. Thank you very much.
I would like to thank the speaker for that speech. It is now the time to listen to the rebuttals of opposition whip.
I'll be doing the Iron Man thing. I'll be taking over for my third speaker. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the floor. As the last speaker of today's debate session, there have been a lot of things that we need to clarify from side opposition so that side government would have a clear view of what today's motion is on. So firstly, I would give out some rebuttals regarding the side government that I would like to address here. So firstly, they had proposed an alternative which would be animal cell cultivation, but they have still not given us if animal cell cultivation is an alternative that will be suggested, why has it not been implemented to that extent in today's status quo? If it is if it is an alternative that can be used to prevent the pain that that animals are going through and has a high success, so why is it not being cultivated? It should be in today's status quo by today's time, because as we are technologically advanced, I believe that should have been a method that is being implemented for a long time by now. But no, people are still using animals because we determine the success rate that we obtain by testing on animals are indefinitely really, really high, and also they have given similar results to help curing both illnesses that these animals and also humans face. So firstly, why we believe that animal cell cultivation would not be an alternative, and what side opposition has proposed about the RDS ethics would be a better choice in today's debate, and saying why we do not regret it is mainly because of its success rate as a whole. So imagine at the end of the day in today's status quo, why animal testing is not being done in the first place? Because it does not have a higher success rate. Why cell cultivation is not being done in today's status quo? Because it does not have a high success rate. So and another reason why do we not regret, because as said by my first and also second speaker, we believe that it is a faster way. As we have said, animals, they have a shorter lifespan compared to these humans. So imagine COVID-19 or any other illness. By testing on animals, by producing these drugs and also testing these animals, we can actually help find a cure faster compared to only testing by using animal cells and also human drug trials, because in this way, at the end of the day, what we from side opposition can see is that by sacrificing these little lives, we actually are able to save millions of other lives. So with that being said, I would like to support more of the points given by side opposition, which were firstly given by my first speaker, who has said that we are able to prevent diseases that harm humans. Like, as we know, these rodents, these animals that are being used in scientific research are the main reason why our medical research has not been abandoned till this day. So like, by using them in helping to diagnose and also discover what diseases that both these animals and humans are suffering from, we are producing an alternate, we are producing a faster way to cure that specific disease, so that we are able to save the other million lives, as I said in my rebuttal before. And also, going on to the point given by the second speaker, it's needed, it is always, animal testing will always be needed in the advancement of scientific research. Firstly, because it has similar characteristics to humans, as said in her second speech, and also because of its short lifespan, which makes it susceptible to helping to solve all these problems which are related to health in both humans and also animals. So like, we from side opposition believe in the advancement of technology as a whole, and we believe that by using the alternatives provided by the side opposition side as RDS certification, we would not abandon medical research, and we would be able to carry out all the we will be able to like help all these future we would be able to help anything that would be harmful to animals and humans in the future. As we have said, we will be using, as said as my by my first speaker from the opposition side, he has said that the reason we are using this is because they are these animals have a higher population, which means it does not cause as much harms to their population in a whole. Which means, like, for example, take mice, they are vector carrying animals, they cause diseases, but in a way, by using this, we are also helping like to not create more problems in the future, but we are using them as a medium to solve the diseases, the illnesses, the problems that are already into this status quo. And that is why we from side opposition believe that we do not regret the use of animals in scientific research. And with that, I rest my case. Thank you.
Now that we have heard all the three speakers from both teams, we shall take a short break of 1 minute. During this time, both the government and the opposition teams will prepare the reply speech.
Hello.
The time of 1 minute has ended. I shall now invite the opposition leader from the opposition team to deliver the reply speech.
Okay. So to close up the debate for today, I would like to ask all of you regarding towards the justification of these animal life that has been mentioned by side opposition. So which side actually do best when it comes to justify this animal life? We say side opposition. Why? Because the whole idea of implementing, or the whole idea of conducting animal research in the first place is that we want to know more about these animals. And secondly, we are sacrificing these animals for the better good. So it's not like we are just killing them for no purpose at all. We're actually trying to learn what they are capable of, or what they can offer, or what diseases will be transmitted when we don't understand the whole functionality of their system. So going back to the points that has been brought forward by me, the first speaker, is that I've mentioned about how this scientific research, or how this scientific research that has been performed on animals will actually prevent diseases. So based on the data that we have gathered, we have showed proof that there's an actual data that can side with the statement, with our statement today. But side oppositions mentioned that, hey, let's not use animals, let's use cell cultivation. And they mentioned that this thing will only occur with technology that will be offered in the future. So for now, they are saying that cell cultivation has to be used, but only in the future. So how are we going to reach that point where we can use cell cultivation? Obviously, we don't have that technology right now. The only one that we can stick to is by conducting research on animals, and by conducting by learning more on what this animal can do. So, and secondly, my second speaker has come up to you and say that that the only option, the only way that we can learn about these carrier diseases, about this vector carrier and whatsoever disease that can potentially harm our existence, is by conducting experiment in order to learn more about them. So that is completely true. We don't want to sacrifice human being. We don't want to sacrifice human for the sake of wanting to know better, because we value our life. As much as we value our life, we value this animal life by wanting to to learn more about them. So that is my response and for the debate. Uh, uh, and lastly, when it comes to this justification, this animal justification, as mentioned by side opposition, we have came up with guidelines, and we think that that is the best way, best approach in order to ensure that these animals that are being tested, that are being conducted, will stay in a way where they will be conducted humanly. So we don't see where these animals are being abused. We see that they do have value, but they do have value, and the value is being given to us differently. And that's all from me. Thank you.
I would like to thank the speaker for that speech. I shall now call upon the Prime Minister from the government team to deliver their reply speech.
Hi, everyone. So I'm just going to start off by saying that the reason why side government takes this case is because, first of all, we have established like a mechanism of regret, right? We've explained that decades of human-centric bias research has chronically crippled our understanding of animal sentience and has led us to, as a scientific community, to test on animals for human benefit unethically. Because we believed these guidelines that they're citing, they're based on those like human-centric biased ideals. So of course, they can claim them to be ethical, but we then, of course, are hence. So we're not saying we never benefited from we have never said on side opposition that we have never benefited from animal testing. But in the same way Nike benefits from child labor, these benefits cannot stand in conjunction with our understanding of how ethics should be applied with the scientific community. Because side opposition's only yardstick of success or measurement of success is the efficacy and replicability of it. That's the only thing that they seem to care about. But they don't really address the only reason why like this newfound research of obtaining cells in vitro is limited is because we as a scientific community have neglected additional alternative research because the industry standard was to abuse animals. This is something that we have to swallow the pill of. We need to take responsibility and hold the scientific community accountable for the actions that we have taken. So as side government, we propose a scientific community that sets strong guidelines and sets strictly in place like that if we are going to consider humans as sentient beings that shouldn't undergo unethical testing, then we should hold animals with similar sentience to the same standard. Like that's all we're really saying. And they're trying to say that like, oh no, like not all animal research is bad. Like sometimes we need it to understand more about people. But like we inside government have already handled this question, saying that we're only talking about the types of research that bring harm towards animals for our own benefit. Like that's the only part of this that matters. So I think like this case is very simple. It really all boils down to the fact that the only reason, like the only real like case that opposition really has is that the alternatives are not as good, and we take that harm because we're going to accept that it is not as good. But the reason why it's not as good is our fault. We didn't invest the funding. We didn't put in the time. We didn't prioritize animals for so long. The only reason why this research has come up is because we have decided to put the funding in and we have decided to care about animal sentience. And that is why this research is only coming into importance. So I feel like comparing them in this like is like comparing apples to oranges. Like efficacy is clearly not the only yardstick of success here. Because if you're saying like, oh, if you want to prioritize 100% replicability, then why don't we just test on humans? Like, obviously we don't do that. Like we have to consider the ethical implications, right? So like, I think, and not to mention like all the other like instances that they've like tried to bring up have actively belittled like animals. Like they have said that because they're large in population, well, humans are large in population, so why can't we test on ourselves? Again, like all of this comes from a perspective that belittles animals. And so that's why we feel that it can't stand, because they're acting on the assumption that animals don't have the same sentience, and they have not shown why they believe that to be the case. We have shown that humans, that's why this like mockumentary, this trend of success has shown that like we want to study more about animals to protect their sentience and to protect them. So, you know, say Ralph, go with side government. Is that a wrestling case?
Thank you. We have now come to the end.
Can I have Nat here? Nat, where should we go for discussion?
Yeah.
For the Ash, where should the Ash go for the discussion?
Yes. Educators are reminded to move the educators discussion room in the Cisco WebEx.
I mean, in Cisco WebEx, they have the like room 8 room for room 8 educators, or generally with all the educators.
Wait. I think it has different rooms for the different sessions.
Oh, okay. All right. We're gonna leave now.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you for the debate, UTHM.
Thanks so much, guys.
Sorry
Yeah,
for the
sorry for
difficulty.
Thanks, guys.
I actually accidentally left the group and then I couldn't join back because I was backstage. But
No
yeah,
worries. My teammate can't even join until now.
I'm really
That's
sorry.
unfortunate.
People keep coming in and out of here. My room is like a big. If you see people around, I'm really sorry. Like legit, my kaka was like, she like went next to me. She was like, "What are you talking about? What's up here?" She's right there. I got.
Public space.
Oh, and as wonderful kakas do, she gave me food. So yeah.
You guys are like first year students or?
I am second year. Am I second? Wow.
But
yeah. I'm
yeah,
Third year.
yeah,
Oh, wow.
I'm good. Yeah.
I
What about you guys?
I'm a second year student. As well as my like teammate who couldn't join just now. Anyway, sorry, we are first year students. We're not second year yet. We are first year students. The guy just now he was. Kenny, are you still here?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm
Okay.
probably the youngest one here. I suck, by the way.
This UTHM
How old
in
are you?
Johor, right? In Skudai, is it?
No, that's UTM. UTHM we have two branches. One is Pariraja and one is Pago.
Pago.
Hmm.
I see. My geography is very bad. Tak ingat
Like, have you guys been debating for a long time?
I guess like
This is our second call.
last year.
As a team, it's our second comp.
This is our first as a team. I haven't even seen my teammates' faces, to be honest.
Oh no, online
Yeah.
learning. You guys are
Yeah, exactly.
first years. That's
In a week, man,
terrible.
in a week.
That's terrible.
We
You
haven't
should-
met each other, like not even once.
You should
Really?
get on Discord and
Wow.
open up your videos or
Yeah.
something. That's so sad.
Yeah, exactly. Finished a whole year of degree at home. That's the saddest thing you can
Yeah.
hear this year.
That must have sucked because I'm just like I just finished second year more or less. Really? No, I mean not yet, but I will finish second year soon. So I'm technically like almost third year student. So my first year was offline lah, okay lah. But I can't imagine how it is for you guys. It must be so boring.
It's very boring and it's very hectic, to be honest.
Hectic,
Having
yeah.
everything online.
Like you guys like live
What are you
your
guys
like
studying? What are you
17
guys
years
studying?
wanting to go uni.
I'm taking food tech. My friend, the girl who couldn't like come in, she was in she's statistical industry.
Ooh.
And also, Kenny, what are you taking, Kenny?
Taking engineering, mechanical.
Oh. Nice. You guys haven't even been to campus, right?
No. Kenny has been to
why?
campus because
I stepped.
You went to campus
Because,
to do it.
They asked us to go back to campus, like after the.
Oh, sorry, they're asking a question to you guys. In the chat.
yeah, hi. Me, Sashwini.
I don't know if they can hear. Oh, okay, they can.
Thank you.
So, you were saying, Kenny?
They asked us to come back after the case dropped down last year, I think. So it's around like, July, something like that. So yeah,
And then, are you
enough
like stuck
to-
there?
Yeah, I'm stuck there. Like,
Oh no, that's terrible. That's
no one
really
here,
sad.
You've been ghosted.
My sister was something like that. She's in foundation. She went back to her uni. She was like really excited to start like offline classes. But then it turns out that she's now stuck in college and has to, well, not now lah. She's back home now. But like she was in college and she had to use like the college Wi-Fi and it was like terrible and it was lagging
God.
and oh my god, I can't imagine. That must be really hard. I hope you're doing well there, Kenny.
Yeah,
I hope you can go back home
Thank
soon,
you.
maybe.
yeah, I hope so.
Okay.
How do we hear the actual feedback?
They're probably still discussing. They're in Cisco or something.
Is there another round today?
No,
Nope.
no. Today is the last round. Do you want another round, Sandra?
No, I'm literally so sleepy.
It's 10:30. I think I want sleep soon.
Same.
Do we
And
have to
it's
wake up at like
starting at
7 tomorrow?
7:45. My
Yeah,
goodness.
seven
Yeah, which
forty-five
is why I'm
tomorrow.
What?
surprised it's so late in the night.
I am not a morning person.
Oh no. I'm gonna like have half my brain for this next debate
Yeah.
Join the club.
at best. I'm really curious as to why they.
Sorry.
I'm a bit curious as to why they started so late today and then tomorrow, like all 5 rounds. Wonder. Thought maybe they would do like
I
2
thought I
rounds
got four,
today.
4 rounds tomorrow. 4 rounds tomorrow, right? Is it
Oh
5
yeah,
rounds?
sorry, 4 rounds
Yeah,
tomorrow.
4 rounds
Four
tomorrow.
rounds.
Yeah.
4 rounds tomorrow. Sorry, yeah. I thought they would do like 2, 3 or something.
Hello. I would like to say sorry, very, very sorry, because the previous chairperson has an internet connection problem. So I'm so sorry for dragging of your time.
Oh, no worries.
Okay.
It's okay.
Okay. And well done, everyone.
Welcome back to Dream Home Decorator. Today we're going to do a
Hi guys.
Hi.
Hello.
Are you guys ready to listen to the verdict?
Hi.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. All right.
Yep.
So with the motion in round one, which is in light of short film, Safe Rough, this house regrets the use of animals in scientific research. We, the educators team, um, accept the motion, which by means that the government wins the debate today. So I'm gonna give a short review on what was happening just now and what you should engage with the debate. Nat, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
All right, cool. So let's start off with the controversial word into this motion. So the controversial word is first. The first one is the regrets and also the scientific research. On the government side, I believe that the prime minister mentioned about what the scientific research is, which is by mean doing some research toward animals in terms of drug, in terms of cosmetics, which could cause the animals to suffer, and it is an unethical thing because animals have the sentience which means that they can feel what humans feel as well. So into this debate, when the government starts talking about the sentience, as the opposition, you should engage them. You should question them why, at the first place, it is important to have these. It is important to have animals. We believe that animals have this sentience because it's just as generally speaking, it's not proven how actually animals could feel this kind of thing. So you should actually give more informations or facts on how animal actually feels this kind of feelings. I mean that animals have sentience at the first place. So that's what the prime minister should do. And then what you should focus on as the prime minister is that you must state I mean, like the framework of your speech. I mean that what are the first thing? What is the status quo actually? And then from that, you can link up from the status quo. You can link up the problems that is happening based on that status quo itself, and then you can come up with the dire needs. Why, at the first place, you need to come up with this motion? What are the things that you want to solve at the first place? So those are the important things. I mean, you have the you have all those things, but you are not well structured in terms of delivering that space. So you must have that kind of structure so that the audience could really catch up every single point that you have said in your speech. And then the opposition side, on the other hand, um, they come up with a approach saying that uh, it is needed to do the animal research because of further understanding. They want the further understanding on animals, on how drugs and also cosmetics will be tested on them, so that the human won't suffer. Those things. Those are this is quite a good approach, but it's quite weak in how on how you want to analyze that thing at the first place. So you mentioned about the certification. You mentioned why animals should be used, but it came late at the end of the debate. For example, like the COVID-19 issue. That's a good point actually, but it came late at the debate. So it's supposed to come out with the first speaker, which you have to prove us that testing on animals um is not it's not essential, but it is important for us to make sure that all the things that we use to humans are safe enough. But at the end of your speech, you must come up with a statement saying that even that you must come up with a statement saying that the government should not regret on testing on animals. You should come up with that because we believe that um, the key point of today's debate is why at the first place the government regret. So your opposition should tell the government you should not regret on this because of what. You have to come up with that kind of statements in terms of making people understanding what you are actually approaching into this debate. So you next time make sure that your team is enough. I mean that your team member is here so that the second speaker won't have to do the reply speech, because I believe that Iron Man is not a good approach in the debate, but because it is unnecessary unless your team member is here. But you must make sure your team member is here. I think that's all from me. Nat,
Yeah, can I say something?
yeah, go on.
Okay, I'll open my camera. Hi. Okay, sorry for taking a lot of you guys' your time. So I'll be talking about 5 things. Number one, when you have a debate about physically regret or like this house regrets or this house supports, right? So you all have to tackle on the fact that what is regret and what is support, and how do you regret and how do you support. So in these kind of motions, if it's a philosophical debate or it's like a debate more on supporting or regretting, you have to really address on the fact that how do you regret it? Is it physically, or is it environmentally, or is it like morally? How do you regret it? If you regret it morally, how does that mean that how does animal testing is considered a cruel or is considered mean, and how does you define mean, and what does mean means, right? What does evil means? And if you were trying to talk about it in an environmental perspective, then how is it harmful to its environment that you're harming any animals in any population or in any circumstances? How is it not justified that every animal has every right to their living, and who has the right to kill animal, or does anyone cannot have the right to kill animals? So if certain parties or certain people have the right to kill animals, does these parties are considered or held liable to it, such as like PETA or WWO or something like that? Is those parties or a group of organization is considered responsible for it, or is it the government that is considered responsible for it? So those kind of things are things that you have to ponder upon when you want to regret or you wanted to support something. So in terms of fiscally, is it more is it pricier to test on cells, or is it less pricier to test on animals? So why is it worth it to test on animals, or why is it not worth it to test on animals? Does any money comes to a price of a living animal? So those kind of things that you have to clarify in the debate. As a prime minister, or as government as a whole, you could take all those chunks and pieces, make it to a compact argument so that you can support this kind of motions. And secondly, who would be the lowest common denominator? So in this kind of debate, so in the light of the short film Save Ralph, it is about a rabbit that is actually tested for cosmetic reasons. So I don't really hear anything about it, any references towards the short film. So I think that's very regrettable. So in the short film itself, the lowest common denominator is Ralph the rabbit. So I wanted to hear more about it, and why is it the lowest common denominator, and how could we help to support it? And even if we do not regret saving animals, how does Ralph life is still important and worth it? Is it justifiable to sacrifice Ralph in the further good of humankind, or further good of even the environment as a whole? Maybe it's not for humans, maybe it's all for the ecosystem itself. And how do you explain that? How is it not selfish for us humans to sacrifice a certain animal so that we can move forward, so that we can progress? I need to know that. And five, you guys need to have better examples like cosmetics, brands that use animals before, such as MAC, or and brands like such as Bird Bees, who doesn't use animals and are going vegan. And how can we trust these brands? How are we as consumers taking approach towards these brands? And secondly, drugs and vaccines, and sometimes they tested it for household goods and pesticides. Yeah, those kind of things. Products are also using animal testing. I need to hear all of that from you. I need to hear variations of examples so that it can help facilitate the debate better. And number four, I've already talked about this before, a reliable organization, NGOs or stuff like that. When we put in some money to save pandas, for example, is it really delivered to those animals in needs? And how do we ensure that our money are actually catering to them? How do we progress better as a society in order for us to facilitate those animals? And five, is cruelty-free goods, or is cruelty-free products is reliable? And how does many brands nowadays actually manipulating the cruelty-free tag to promote their brand better or stuff like that, commercialization of cruelty-free brands? Because we're talking about are using animals in scientific researches for products and for drugs or vaccines or whatever, right? So those are considered as the end result of it for money, for economical purposes. We don't do scientific research just for the better, for the humankind. We use it to gain profit. So I don't see any of it in the debate. So I think those kind of things are factors that could help you guys in further rounds. Yeah, thank you so much. And good luck for the next round.
Thank you so much.
Okay. With that, the House of Parliament is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Right. For the government, next time you must come out. If you regret with the animal, what are the alternatives that you can actually use to do the testing? So that's the session add up from me. Yeah. The alternative is needed for the scientific research, because this is important. The research itself is important, right? So what are the alternatives from the government side, from your own paradigm on what you're gonna do if they do not use the animal? So that is all from me. Thanks, Nat. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you to the speaker.
Good luck for the next
Bye.
round. Bye. Good night.
Thank you so much.